Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I am a dental student and today we are going to be talking about dentistry interviews, how to ace them, how to secure your offer, and also how to be the most prepared that you can be on that day. If you've already got an interview, well done. And if you're still waiting to hear back from your universities, I hope it's good news when they contact you, because the interview process is just a step up from your personal statement. It's your chance to show them that you are really passionate about dentistry and eventually becoming a dentist. When I first submitted my application, I had to wait from October all the way till just before Christmas, and then I got my first interview and I was so happy. And then the rest of the interviews came rolling in afterward. I got 3 interviews and eventually got 3 offers from those universities. So there was one university that got away, but I guess it wasn't meant to be. One of my interviews was a panel interview and the other 2 were MMI. For a panel style interview, you generally stay in one place with the interviewer or the interviewers. It may be 2, 3 or even more people, and they may have your personal statement on the table and just ask you questions about it. With an MMI, there are many stations, and at each station you might be interviewed by different people about different topics. MMI stands for multiple mini interviews, and it actually mimics the way that we as dental students are assessed in a practical test called OSCEs. So before you go for your interview, research what style that your university will use to assess students. And that leads me to my first tip number 1, prepare for the expected. MMIs are becoming more popular and there are several stations that you can be preparing for. Communication, ethics, role-playing, data analysis, manual dexterity, those are the main ones that tend to come up, and those are the ones that I got in my MMI. It's a good idea to put all this information in one place. So make a Word document and on each page write down these possible MMI questions and stations that could come up, and then bullet point your answers for these questions. In one of the stations they may ask you, why dentistry, right? That's the most important question they could ask you. Why do you want to study dentistry? And you may have so many good reasons for wanting to study dentistry, but if you just stick to maybe 3 or 4 points and then develop these points every single time that you practice. Ethics is another important station, so make sure you know the 4 ethical principles so you can support your ethical decision making. This includes respect for autonomy, beneficence, which is acting in the patient's best interest, non-maleficence, which is not causing unnecessary harm, justice, which is treating people fairly, particularly when allocating medical resources. Confidentiality and consent also form a huge part of ethics. Ethical issues get really interesting when they clash. There may be a situation where the clinician is driven to act in the best interest of a patient, but it could be argued that the patient knows what's best for them and their body and uses their autonomy to choose what is right for them. This may be choosing to refuse treatment or going for a risky procedure. Try to see things from different points of views. What are the pros and cons? And try to give a balanced argument. One thing I did was to read the GDC principles. There are only 9 of them, but they're basically guidelines that real dentists have to follow when it comes to treating patients and treating their colleagues and even making decisions. So I thought that would help me with any question that's related to dentistry decision making. So after you've prepared for the possible questions that could come up, you are going to practice, because practice makes perfect. So the best way I found was to get people to pretend to be interviewers and just ask me loads of questions. And then the most important part is that they have to give you feedback. And the more you practice, the more you start to feel confident and the more you start to get a feel for what it's like to be in that interview environment, and you will just feel more comfortable talking about yourself. Another thing I did was to record myself, and that really helped with refining my body language, because interviews are about the non-verbal as much as they are about the verbal communication. In my case, I talk a lot with my hands. And when watching the videos back, I could see that I was just moving my hands a bit too much for a professional interview. So I settled on putting my hands in a central position, maybe on my lap or on the table if there was one available. So I will still be able to move my hand because that's part of my personality, but I just wasn't sort of like doing that when I talked. So that was one thing I did. And for different people it may be different things, so you can catch these habits by making a video of yourself and watching it back. If you're struggling to give a concise answer, then it might be a good idea to structure your answer. If you remember in English GCSE PEE, it wasn't just good for English, it can also be used in interview situations. So you say your point and then you back it up with evidence, maybe from your work experience, and then you explain how it all links back to dentistry and how it all links back to you studying at their university. Tip number 4 is for you to read up on key stuff going on in dentistry. You can also keep up with the news as well. You don't have to know everything, even I don't know everything that's going on in the world of dentistry, but it just makes you seem more well-read and it makes your answers more interesting. One thing I did that was really useful was a free online course called Discovering Dentistry. I think it's done by the University of Sheffield, and I don't know who it's aimed at, but for me back then as a 17-year-old, I felt like it gave me so much insight into the world of dentistry before my interview. On one of my MMI stations, I was able to talk about how I'm intrigued by advances in 3D dentistry because I'd watched videos from the course. Tip number 5. Read your personal statement over and over again and make sure you're able to back up everything that you've written on that statement. Like I said before, there's a couple of weeks before submitting your statement and before your first interview. It will just look embarrassing if you've written about something and you can't talk about it. So make sure you have a copy of it with you. If you've talked about an article, make sure you go back and read that article again. If you've talked about your EPQ, make sure you go back and read it again. If you've talked about a specific example from your work experience, then just go back and reflect on that example again. Tip number 6, manual dexterity. This is what sets dentistry apart from other healthcare careers, so it's very possible that you will be tested on it on at least one station. In both of my MMIs, I had manual dexterity stations. For one of the universities, I had to make something that was completely unrelated to dentistry, so I was able to do that really well. But in the other university, I had a very bad experience with regard to manual dexterity. We were asked to look at some picture instructions and follow it to tie a piece of floss around a rubber dam clamp. This is something we now learn at dental school, but I struggled on that station because I didn't follow the instructions correctly. So when I flossed the clamp, I looked at what I'd done and it didn't look anything like the final picture that they were expecting it to look like, and I just felt so sad.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
And I put it down, and then this dental student who'd been watching me the whole time had to ask me questions to reflect on my experience, and because I was so mad at myself for not being able to do the task properly, that affected the way I reflected on my work. I think thinking back in hindsight, that was supposed to be a hard station, and the most important part for that station was probably the reflection part. But when I finished that station, I just tried to forget about it, and that's the beauty of MMIs, is that each station is judged individually. So if you don't do well in one station, just forget about it and move on to the next station and try to do better in that station. These stations are rarely just manual dexterity on their own. It may be manual dexterity under timed condition, so you can show how well you react under stress. Manual dexterity and reflection afterwards, which I had. One way to put this to practice is to do a task like origami under timed conditions. See if you can follow instructions and make something that is presentable. Tip number 7 is just a general tip. Try and get some rest the night before your interview. There's no point staying up all night worrying about it because that can affect your performance. You need to be well rested. If your interview is in a new place, I know some people that travel to that new city and spend the night there so that they're not rushing on the day of their interview. And on the day, don't stress. Just be the best version of yourself. You've come all this way for good reason, so show them that you've got what it takes to study at their university. So thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you're feeling more prepared and ready for your interview. I'll hopefully be doing more content like this in upcoming videos because there just aren't enough videos on studying dentistry in the UK or getting into dentistry in the UK. So be sure to subscribe and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye! All you need is one offer, trust me. All you need is just that one university. Just that one university to be like, I like you, I like this one, I can see this one being a dentist in the future. That's all you need, just that one offer, and you become a dental student and then you become hopefully a dentist.